Hello haters to hello
lovers.
Like my dislikers, maybe.
Hello, my dislikers. Okay, the button has been pressed. Hello, happy people.
Brilliant.
Lovers will be the next time. I always say I have special guests. This time it's not an exception.
Very special.
Very special. She's called Laura. In how many languages can you greet my happy people?
Yes, I'll start with Sawubona, goeiedag, with Привет, Guten Tag, Hi, Dajahaw, and the final language will probably be in the country that I'm in, Grüezi.
Grüezi. Yeah. That's true. We're in Switzerland. A special bonus that I have for my happy people is some tips that come from you about how to study languages. I think you're the best person to ask because, hey, you speak so many languages, like 5, I don't know, 6, 4. Still,
maybe studied a couple more, but
I think you're just being shy. But okay, Chinese is already a crazy language to study, so we're gonna give you credit for that.
Well, very first tip is if you can find a boyfriend who speaks that language, because that way, I mean, you're going to be spending time with your boyfriend or girlfriend. If they speak the language, they will be very nice, caring and loving at guiding you through the process of speaking that language.
You can't really stage that. When I came to Spain, everyone was recommending me to get a Spanish boyfriend, but that didn't work out, hence why my Spanish isn't the best.
Well, why my Chinese isn't the best, I guess, as well. My German is excellent, though. It's really fluid.
We get the point. Yeah, we're not going to clarify on the details. Yeah. Right, so tip number 2?
Tip number 2, be committed. I mean, you've started it, commit yourself to it. Focus on the process rather than the product. You always have this end in mind, like, oh yes, in next 6 months I'm going to be knowing, I don't know, 3,000 Chinese characters. Maybe, but if you keep on focusing on that, you start getting anxious and maybe you don't have enough time to study, or you get nervous. So focus rather on the process.
Because it's easy to get excited, I think, and then sometimes you're like you spark about something and then you realize, well, actually it's challenging. It's not as easy as it looks.
Precisely. But when you focus on the process, you look back and you realize, wow, I actually do know all of this. Another tip, be interested in the culture, watch movies, through news. Well, they do speak a bit fast normally in the news, but they speak very clear.
Yeah.
I suppose who is the clearest at speaking are kids. Pronounce each word very clearly.
I actually felt exactly the opposite. I remember the first time my big foreign trip was to the US, and the kids were like, Dad, Mom, and then the rest I just didn't understand anything, because I found it was so difficult to get them because they were blubbering, right? They were not... Because when I spoke to the adults, I felt like they were very clear, whereas with kids, I felt like there was so much coming from their mouths that I couldn't really... I don't know.
On
the other hand, I think if you master kids' speech, then you can really master the language.
I suppose. I do enjoy listening to kids.
I used to say things like translating them from Russian into English, and people looked at me. I once said, smile is a weapon. And my teacher looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about? Because, улыбка это твое оружие, and the teacher was like, what is she talking about? That's not funny.
Yeah, I did that sometimes, German English as well. It just translate directly from English to German, and it makes absolutely no sense. Especially the word eventually, I would say repeat it in German as eventuell, because it's the same word but actually has a completely different meaning in German. It's all the same.
That's sometimes the beauty. When you speak different languages, you become a bit different. Like, you're never kind of the same, the way you express yourself.
When you speak a language, you sort of fall into their heritage and culture, and it's a different side of you somehow, I guess. So you know 2 sides of me.
Yeah. Well,
I know 2 sides of you.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay.
Too much already.
The tension is too much. So 3 tips.
Embrace the culture of the language you're learning. Get a boyfriend or live with a host family.
Or a girlfriend.
Whoever's
watching us.
Anything, yes.
Yeah. And focus on the process, not the outcome. Where did we meet? Let's just go through that wonderful love story of ours.
I remember I walked into our little house back in Leeds University where we've studied together. Different subjects, but we lived in the same house. And I remember I walked in and I see you on the staircase. I think you were carrying some bags and things.
That sounds like...
Yes. And you spoke to me in English. English, but I could hear like, oh, there's a bit of an accent going on there, and it sounds like a Russian one.
Eastern Europe.
Yes, so I asked her, where you're from, and you said, yeah, Rostov-on-Don, and then we hit it off, по-русски.
Immediately. But you studied something that my brain would never be capable of understanding, Chinese language.
Yes, I studied Chinese. It was quite a funny story. My parents wanted me to do economics or law, and I was like, oh, can I just go into like a good university, but then I decide what I study? And they were like, okay, fine. So
and
I picked Chinese. We had it in high school back in Germany where I did my high school. There were a lot of sort of language competitions, and we participated in all of them. And we won them all. We did a dragon boat show, we did a puppet theatre show, all sorts of things. And we even raised money for the Sichuan earthquake back in the time.
Wow,
it was about 10, 15 years ago.
That's basically Laura, like when it starts, just to create a certain time frame. Let's speak about your parents. And in which countries did you live throughout all these years of your short yet eventful life?
Brilliant. Yeah, no, not a problem. So I'm originally from Johannesburg, but my parents are, my mother's Russian, my dad's from London. At about 4, Mum and I moved from Joburg to Moscow. And then around 2004, we decided to pack our bags and come down to Cape Town, to South Africa, where I've spent a couple of years at a German school. Surfed a bit, learned some German, and then eventually, it was time to move on. So at 14, I moved to Germany and lived with a host family, most beautiful family.
Just because you decided to, no? It was kind of like the spontaneous, that's what like summarizes you. You're a very spontaneous person. You don't think twice, you just like...
Absolutely. I think just as a general rule, if you feel something in you that needs change or you need to move and do something, do it. I mean, and it doesn't matter which age that is. I think parents will and your loved ones will always support you. So yes, I felt that I wanted to improve on my German. I asked to be sent to Namibia, to Windhoek. It's
ask to be sent as you.
Yes.
Can you send me to Namibia, please?
I suppose. Well, I think when you're 14, you're still, parents still have the responsibility for you, I guess. Yeah. So no. But Mom said, no, I know a family in Dortmund in Germany. Let me call them. So she calls them up, and they were like, yeah, sure, we'll take Laura in.
Can she be like a foreign exchange student suddenly going in? Yeah.
Precisely. It was supposed to be for 1 year, and it ended up the whole high school time for 3.5 years.
What stuck with me during one of our conversations back in the day, back in Leeds, was when you told me that I asked you, which country do you really belong to? Is it like Russia or Britain or South Africa where you were born? You were like, I don't know. But I was like, but do you miss, I don't know, Sprote or some of the Russia? And you were like, yes, of course I miss
the borscht.
But do you miss, I don't know, like Sunday roast or whatever, British? You were like, yeah, I miss it. I miss South Africa.
I still have mar-mite even here in Zurich.
Oh my God, how can you like mar-mite?
I just, it's passion.
Horrible. They say either you love mar-mite or you hate it.
Yeah, I suppose.
When I tasted it, I had to wash my mouth with a toothpaste for like the whole day.
I'm sorry about that.
Is it hard sometimes that you're kind of all over the place, but then it's like, what is your core?
Well, I suppose there's in fact a theory about it. They talk about these hybrid kids these days. So kids growing up in sort of a third country outside of their parents' home countries.
Mm-hmm. It's already, whether you love travel or not, is in your DNA.
Precisely. And you don't have roots as such. Sure, you do. You're connected to your family, to your parents' heritage, to their home countries. But if you grew up already in another country or even a couple of them, then you don't really have the roots. And it does sometimes make you feel vulnerable. Sometimes it does make you feel a bit lost. But at the end of the day, it also makes you grow stronger. You can make yourself a home anywhere, depending on what kind of people you surround yourself with.
Yeah. Well,
and I got
you. Lucky, that was a lottery.
Yeah.
Russian roulette.
Yes,
we connected through that. We also had an Indian neighbor who might be watching this vlog. I'm going to send it to you.
Yes, yes.
She's going to love it. Well, we went almost into anthropological, the roots, where you come from, loneliness. Do you still feel like you go to all these different countries, you pick up all the best cultural things, you embrace them, which is great.
Yeah.
But do you ever feel like, I'm talking about myself, that I'm still like missing something, and I don't know if it's like food or if it's maybe still the country is, you still feel a bit foreign there?
Well, I've also, throughout the couple of countries that I've lived in, grew up in, I would say, I've changed 7 schools.
Oh my God.
So every time I entered a new school, it's a new class, and they've already known each other for so many years. So I've always been an outsider. And to be honest, I sort of carry that with me, that I will probably most of the time be a bit of an outsider. But these days we live in a century in countries and cities which are so international. It's actually been fun.
But why German school in South Africa?
French school didn't take me.
How come?
They
You
said,
behaved so badly from day one.
no, well, I started at an English school, but I didn't like it because I remember we were at a house party of some girl, and it was a pool party, and you know, it's like in these movies, Californian movies, where everyone just jumps in the pool in their bikinis and stuff. And I had the biggest breasts at that age, 12, in the class. So all the boys were always like staring at me, and they were taking off my
Like the back of your...
yes, of my bikini, and it just was so annoying. It's like scarred me for life.
Yeah.
So I decided to, no, I can't go to school anymore because this is just unacceptable. And by the way, that boy that did it, he got kicked out of school 2 years later anyway. So
Karma. That's
yes.
what I call karma.
Yes.
In a way.
Exactly. So
But that's kind of bullying. So like you can say that you went through bullying in that sense. I like
yeah. Yes, yeah, you can go that route, but it's all right. I
choose
rather
not to
learn another
focus.
language and then live in Zurich and
yeah.
be,
Well, at the end of the day, the boy got kicked out of school, and you went on pursuing many languages, which you speak now. Which
exactly, and traveling the world.
Yeah,
So you
it's
know,
a win-win situation.
precisely. I think bad things that may happen to you in life turn out to be the best things that have happened to you.
Wow,
Because
I love this. I love how this interview unfolds. That's
sorry, I'm
something
just
like-
sliding off the couch. Yes.
But that's kind of a skill that you have, that sunny aura around you, and not everyone has it. And now we just talked about kind of a serious subject, yet you still make it fun, you still make it positive. How do you manage that?
Well, you're just not allowed to take life too seriously, honestly. I mean, you've got to be... I mean, what I like about, I suppose also my background is that I'm very northern. It's very like German and Russian and cold and strict and timely and this. But as well, I have a South African in me, which is like swimming in the ocean, sunsets, glass of wine,
Yeah.
you know, all sunny and fun, and, you know, the spirit, the soul, you know, and...
The soul is still South African.
Oh, forever.
The core. The
Absolutely.
core part.
Well, I would say the soul is Russian. Nice and
very,
big.
Very Russian.
Yes. Heart is probably African, nice and big as well. But my mind is very German for sure. That's why I'm
Wow.
also here in Zurich, because I like that strictness in terms
Anything British in you?
of Mar-mite,
Okay, all the Marmite you can see.
politeness,
Chinese?
kindness.
What did you get
Chinese.
from the Chinese culture?
In Chinese culture, I suppose a bit of philosophy, also mindset. It's an eye-opener. It's a whole other world, other civilization, which we should all know about. I was sitting next to law school kids when I was studying in their section, because I realized, okay, well, they're very focused. Because if you sit with like history and biology kids, they're
all
like chatty.
Oh, like journalism kids?
Yes, but the law kids, they're very quiet, you know, so I could go through my thousands of characters
We
with
have
them.
to meet our deadlines. There is no excuse.
Absolutely, yeah.
But what motivated you with Chinese? Because it's not like just speaking any European language. It's speaking something that's super hard, completely different world. Why?
Yeah, well, I think it started in school, I suppose, and I decided to take it to university also because the year abroad was in Shanghai. I mean, you go to university for the year abroad as well.
Gap year. For some British people, it's a gap year, which is a totally different story. But yeah,
Well, it's
yeah,
China
but
is a gap year for sure. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, no, this opportunity to go to Shanghai for a year, it's just a blessing, and it's definitely worth learning Chinese for.
Yeah,
I
and
suppose.
I remember that you wanted to go to China again to improve your Chinese, and you decided to go to this competition which was happening in London. And the story was hilarious because living with Laura, I had to listen to a Chinese song and South African drums, which was a hell of experience.
Yes.
Can you tell me, how did it go? What motivated you?
To that? Yeah, well, the thing is that it's called a Chinese Bridge Chinese language competition. It's very they do it, I think, worldwide, and I think if you reach the highest level, it's a whole TV show in China. Yeah,
could be a celebrity.
But exactly. Well, I was just at the lowest level. They had the competition in London, and it consists of a couple of parts: grammar, or name the 6 holy mountains of China, or whatever. It just goes on. And then one of the parts is creative part, and of course, obviously, everyone's gonna recite a poem, sing a song, do a dance, kung fu, wushu, you know. And I'm like, oh, I need to do something more creative, you know, something different.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what can I do? It's like, I can play an African drum, the djembe.
As you do.
Wear a Chinese, traditional Chinese sort of dress.
Yeah.
And then I'll sing like a really traditional Chinese song with an African beat to it. And I took the Xinjiang province traditional song.
Can you perform it right now?
I don't fully remember it, but it went something like 掀起了你的盖头来，让我看你的眉毛，你的眉毛na na 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 na.
Great.
Something like that.
Laura, how did it go in the end?
I did not reach, well, I think they loved it. I could see the jury laughing, but I think clowning is perhaps more my direction in that
What's
respect.
impressive is that you took the risk, you put so much effort into it. That's what I admire about people.
And woke you up at night.
Yeah, well,
Practicing.
that I still remember, because the song was like spinning for weeks in my head. Because I also had to record you on mobile phone, like doing the whole thing. Like
I remember, yes.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
That was
day.
funny times.
What things do you miss about South Africa the most?
Oh, you're touching my heart, my big African heart.
You said that your heart is from South.
The soil, the red soil. I don't know, when you were there on safari, did you like grab the soil in your hands and just play with it? It's
That's
beautiful.
a good reason to go back for me now.
There you go. The great African sunset, that sun is massive, and it's just mind-blowing, especially if you have a glass of wine in your hand. This crispness in the air, this sort of dry, sunny air at the end of the day.
So poetic you are, my dear.
Well, I don't know. I still think about it and dream about it. I love safari. I love animals. I just look at people on the streets and I'm like, oh, what animal could that be? Oh, that's an earcat.
Really?
Oh, that's a sloth.
What animal would I could be?
Oh, darling, I will think about it and I'll let you know. But you're the most beautiful animal. I think you're a bird. Because you like to fly
You give
high.
me wings right now.
Yes,
Okay.
no, but definitely. Purest breed.
I get to like pet animals in South Africa. Cheetah, like that's what I did. I was like,
you went to Spear.
Like
Another one?
Not an orphanage, but like, you know, a place where they
Little
have
ones.
well, little ones were like 9 months old, were these big cheetahs.
I patted baby lions for sure, and fed a 6-month-old giraffe, but it was huge.
Oh, I love
Her name was
giraffes.
Fanny. She was beautiful, and otherwise I'm quite happy to see animals at a distance. It's not a problem. They do also
You respect wildlife in a way that
you feel it. It all goes through you. It's so beautiful. Cape Town is one of my favorite cities. Table Mountain is one of my favorite mountains.
Made me want to go back to South Africa.
We should go together next time, for sure.
Let's do it. I believe Laura's story is super interesting. Enjoy the vlog. Stay safe. All the best.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.